and I would just like wherever I wanted to go. It's the nice thing about Calgary, man. The pass system is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
you can get anywhere. So Edmonton's kind of lame.
What made you move out there?
The Army.
Okay.
That was it. I got posted to Edmonton right off the bat, and then I got posted. Well, I did 6 years ish here in Edmonton, and I did a couple years in Meaford, out in Ontario, and I had met my now wife, and we had a place out here, and just moved back. Don't like it though. Still don't like it. I hate Edmonton like with a passion. So when we moved to Sherwood Park, I can finally say I don't live in Edmonton anymore. Yeah. I live in Sherwood Park.
And is Sherwood Park nice?
It is. It's kind of like Okotoks.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like it's literally on the other side of the Henday. So it's right next to Edmonton, just like Okotoks is like just on the other side of McLeod Trail kind of thing. Like when you get right on the south, you're in Okotoks.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's nice, small town kind of feel. Not a lot of traffic, not a lot of people.
No, and it feels good.
Yeah, and I got 2 young boys, and we really wanted a yard for them to be able to play in. That's the big one. It's just you want to go burn off some energy, go outside, go play. You guys get.
Wait, that still exists? Go outside and play, not just here's an iPad.
There is that too, but yeah, we try and get them outside as much as possible because it's good to be outside.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, those are the best memories as a child, right? Being out there.
Although, I can't say that I have any great memories of me sitting on my cell phone or playing a video game on a tablet or even on a computer. Like I remember the good memories I have about playing video games are like old school N64 where you're playing like split screen Mario Kart or
007?
007, absolute GoldenEye. Yeah, all the way, things like that. F-Zero, another great one. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff where everyone had to come to your house.
Yes.
And everyone would be hanging out, maybe eating crap and playing video games and talking shit to each other the whole time. And
those were the days. Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah, that shit doesn't happen anymore.
Exactly. N64, what's that? Yeah.
Right. I grew up. So, you might know this place. You ever heard of Video Game Trader?
I don't know if they exist anymore, do they?
They do, actually. Yeah. So I used to work at Video Game Trader for a number of years. And when I started working there, they were still renting Super Nintendo and Sega when I started working there.
Oh, this place looks super cool.
Yeah, so that's the new one. That Jeff, my buddy, him and I used to work together. Eventually, he bought it from the previous owner who we were working for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this place. That's down south right now, yeah.
I love this look. I mean, it just takes you back to like Blockbuster.
It's wicked. Video. Yeah, it's wicked. They did such a great job there, and they have everything. You want something weird and unheard of, some random Japanese thing, they'll get it for you. You need a fucking, one of those bad boys. Mm-hmm. You're good to go. You want an original Nintendo with the friggin' zapper in box.
They have it.
They'll have it for you. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God! Look, they have all the Game Boys.
The Game Boys, all the original games, Game Gear, Sega, like Sega Saturn, weird shit like Neo Geo and like all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So I used to work there, and I grew up as I was, going to high school and stuff. I was working here, but I spent most of my time. I got to watch as we went from Super Nintendo up to about Xbox. The Xbox 360 hadn't quite come out when I stopped working there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you were there for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically the whole time we were living in Calgary, that 9 years or so, maybe 12 years or so. I can't remember. Anyway, the whole time I was so I got to see, Sega and then Sega CD and then Sega Saturn and like there's all the like, ooh, is PlayStation gonna beat out Sega Saturn? Sega has all the game contracts and stuff, and then you watch PlayStation just fucking destroy people, right? And like it was cool. It was a really neat experience. And now my kids are all like, "Can I play on the tablet?" I'm like, I mean, I guess. Sure.
The Genesis was my first console. What was yours?
Atari 2600.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, but we got it like it had been out for quite some time. We got it like super old. But like the first, I'd say new console was the original NES. That was pretty cool. We got it with the Duck Hunt Mario
Oh,
combo.
yes, yeah. I was a PlayStation guy, so my cousin actually gave me his with all these games, but they're all burnt at the
Hmm.
time. Remember, you could get the mod chip?
Do you remember having to carry memory cards to places and
Yes,
like, I
yes.
got my game on here, let's play it? Yeah. Oh man.
That's funny. That's fun.
Good times. Yeah, actually, I got to while I was working there, I sold the British Bulldog from WWF back in the day. I sold him like $1,200 worth of equipment. He just showed up one day with his son and was like, "What do we need?" And I'm like, "This, this, 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 this." And he's like, "Okay, I'll take it." Probably the easiest sale I ever made.
Wow. Yeah.
Here you go.
Were you a big wrestling guy? Did you love wrestling?
I don't know if I really loved it. Like it was cool, and I remember watching it. I remember having lots of fun back in the '80s, and then I don't know, just kind of got bored of it after a while. But it was still pretty neat. Like I was like, "Is that the British Bulldog?" And the dude I was working with, the manager at the time, was like, just stunned. He was a huge wrestling fan. He didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, I guess that's who we think it is. Yeah,
Deer in headlights just staring at him.
yeah, yeah. He yeah, it was pretty cool. But he had the biggest smile on his face for the rest of like a week later. He's just like, I got to meet the British Bulldog. It was pretty cool.
May his soul rest in peace.
Yeah, yeah. There's too many people have gone that way, unfortunately,
Yes, yes.
from back in the day. I guess I'm just getting old now. That's the problem.
I mean, remember there was Chris Benoit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Owen Hart, who like there's just so many of them that it's funny though when you actually look it up how many are still around. They're just like beat the shit out. Like they're kind of they're just everything hurts and they're old and they're crippled. And I saw Bret Hart came out to he was in Ontario when I was in Meaford, and he showed up with a bass and he just started talking to people and hanging out, and so I got to meet him. But yeah, he was. Man, you could see it, like every movement hurt, and he went to shake your hand, and like you could feel his knuckles were all kind of gnarled, and like,
I mean, just imagine the hits and the takedowns year after year.
Yeah, oh yeah, and you know, playing hurt and working injured, and then getting more injured, and then still having to. I mean, the same thing we did in the Army too, right? Was just, you know, oh well, it hurts. Okay.
You gotta go.
You got shit to do. Like, let's go. All right. Can you walk? Yeah. All right. Let's go.
It's literally the show must go on kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're paying for it. Like my body's pretty broken. So
yeah. Are you still feeling it till this day? When
it's
cold outside, your knuckles or your hands hurt?
Knees, back, shoulders. When it gets really like when a storm's coming and you can feel the pressure change, I can't hear. My hearing starts to go away, and my tinnitus gets much louder, and and then everything hurts more, and everything sucks. Just harder to do anything. But again, the one good thing we got out of the military and that was just keep going. We got shit to do. All right, you're gonna go slow? Cool. Keep moving.
Almost like that determination or perseverance regardless of the circumstance.
Yep. Yeah, if you can't, it's like we need to get there right now. Okay. Can you run? Yeah. No? Okay. Walk. Can you walk? No? Can you crawl? No? Can you slide? Can you roll around? Can you make forward progress regardless of the difficulties that you're going through? However small that forward progress is, because you're going to step that next person up just a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. So.
Especially what you were doing. I mean, I guess if we take it back, you know, what was it? Since like the age of 4, you've known you wanted to be a soldier.
Yeah. There was no doubt about it. I have a picture of when I think I was 4, and I have one of those old olive drab sweaters, and it says Army across the front in the old stencil graph right in. Yeah, I always wanted to be a soldier. That was it. It was the coolest thing I could possibly imagine. And
did you ever play with those little men that we would get?
G.I. Joe's, man, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, I had all those guys. And even then, outside of it, I would practice trying to be a soldier. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I would be outside practicing, be like marching around, goose stepping for some reason, or I'd be just standing sentry on top of a friggin' the treehouse we had once in the country. was I would stand there for hours, shoulder arm, just like I'm fucking hardcore. And no, I was not hardcore.
Honey, is our son okay?
Yeah, exactly. They'd just be looking outside like, ee. And the funny thing is my mom's like a hippie. So I was like the other side of it. Yeah, it was pretty good. Good times.
Was grandparents in the military?
Yeah, my granddad on my mom's side was also a combat engineer. He served in World War II and never talked about it. Not until I got back from Afghanistan did we ever have like a little chat. It was just more of a, yeah, granddad was a soldier at one point, and that was it. But my dad's side of the family are all like ranchers, country boys, that kind of stuff. They never. My granddad on my dad's side was going to sign up, but then he broke his ankle riding or trying to get down from a horse or something. I can't remember exactly how he broke his ankle, but he broke his ankle, and that was it.
They're cattlemen, right? They're ranchers.
Yeah. We're cows. Yeah. It's I think he got like it was early when he tried to sign up. I think it was like at 39 when the war like broke out, and then because he broke his ankle, he got a hey, your ankle's messed up, sorry, you can't march. Little did they know that he was still walking 10 to 15 miles just to go down the road to get his cattle back, that kind of stuff. But yeah,
it's like the farm tough. Like there's a different vibe, isn't there? Like
yeah, well,
tough.
I was just talking to a buddy of mine, and I was saying that I got, I relied a lot on the fact that you just work. Like in my mind and my mentality growing up, that's what I saw people do. Whether they were hurt, whether they were struggling, whether they were doing anything, you just keep working until the job's done.
Even if you didn't want to work.
Especially if you didn't want to work, because like it's still got to get done, right? It's going to be there tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So you just work until it's done, or you work until it's dark, and then you start again tomorrow. And that's just so when I joined the Army, they would be like, "We're going to do more, we're going to go farther," and I'd be like, "Okay." It was never much of a shock to the system where some guys were, we'd do like a 10K march. And then they'd be like, "We're going farther," and I'd just be like,
"Yeah,
yep, okay, man. Just tell me when to stop. I don't really like when you say stop, I'll stop. At that point, then we'll carry on." But yeah, there is a different vibe when you talk about farm boys. They everything's done by hand. So.
Oh yeah. Did you get into combat engineering because of Granddad?
I think I got interested in it because of that. I was like, "Ooh, I wonder what that is." And then
even though he wasn't sharing it with you, that's
yeah, I think that was part of it, was like the mystique of it. Like, ooh, I wonder what it is, right? Like, who knows? And yeah, I started looking it up, and they're like, "We do high explosives and dealing with mines and bridges," and I'm like, all right, I am down. Let's do that. You're gonna pay me to blow things up? Yeah, I'm in. Sign me up. Where do I go? Over there? Cool. Let's do it. Yeah, that was a big part of it. And then but yeah, once I, realized what it was, and especially when I got back from Afghanistan, and I sat down with my granddad, and he actually talked to me about what he was doing. It was, I think it was a little, checking the box, like, yep, okay, I kind of did the same thing.
I wonder what it is, though. Whether it's a first responder that's now retired.
So I've been doing advocacy stuff for quite some time now, and I've been talking to other people, obviously, on my podcast and all this other stuff. And I think the biggest issue is, in order to give you context, we have to tell you things that you don't actually want to hear in order for you to flesh out like the actual thing that happened. Right. So in terms of a firefighter or a police officer or something like that, a police officer says, "Yeah, I went to a really bad call. There was this car accident and a lady died." Like that's okay. That's pretty simple, right? But what you don't see or what you don't hear about is the context surrounding that. So like I had a guy I was talking to who said, I had to deal with this car accident. But just prior to that, I had picked up a box of donuts that I was going to bring home for the family. And I really wanted to, I was feeling really good. And then I show up this car accident and this lady is smeared across the roadway and the car is totaled. And in the back seat, there's a box of Timmy's donuts. And so it links the trauma to his, I want to take care of my family. I want to do something good. And now all of a sudden this traumatic thing is attached to it. And it's a lot of that stuff. So when we talk about Afghanistan, when we talk about, wartime stuff, someone who's never been there, never been through the training, never been through the experiences that lead up to the moments that become traumatic, others don't have the context to it. So in order for us to give you that context, we have to then dive back into that feeling of vulnerability and pain and connection and loss and all these things that we don't really want to.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Totally. And Chance, does it get easier every time you talk and share the stories? Does the pain alleviate your body?
It gets easier. I don't know about alleviating. It's like, if you think it's actually very much to like working out or using muscles or stuff like that. If you're going to sit there and bench, I don't know, whatever would be considered heavy for you, right? And you're going to lift that over time. You lift that enough times that it's going to feel lighter. But it's still 125 pounds. It's still 280 pounds. It's still whatever that weight is, right? Unfortunately, the flop side of that is when you don't share it, it's like holding that bar up. You're just sitting there with that weight. You're just holding it for years and years and years. And like, so I talked to my granddad after I got back from Afghanistan because I was finally somebody he could go, I don't need to give you the context. I don't need to share the extra stuff. I can just tell you a story and you'll go, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Could
you see it in his eyes, kind of what happened? Like you can feel it. Yeah.
It was
like a soldier can see another soldier and say,
yeah, it's almost instant. And I walked into the room that he was in when I first got back, and I had been back for like 2 days. like I had just gotten home. And I walked in and he looked at me and I looked at him and he went like this. And like he just, And then I sat down and as we were talking and, going over stuff, I realized that he'd been sitting there holding that bar, holding that weight, holding all that trauma for 70 years, right? And it was in that moment where I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be that guy. And that's when I started talking about stuff. That's when I started engaging my wife initially. And I was like, these are the feelings I'm in and this is what's happening. And as hard as it was for me to explain that to her in that moment, the next time I didn't have to explain it to her. Right, fireworks would go off, and I'd be all jacked up, and
that would trigger you if you'd hear fireworks.
Well, so for me, it is now, but so when we were in Massamgar, we would get rocketed all the time. Like it was pretty much daily, and so after I got home, I was living in Morinville at the time.
Okay, just for the listeners, so how long?
I got lots of backstory on this.
I love this. Okay, so how long have you been in the military at that time before you were deployed to Afghanistan?
I had been in the Army for before I deployed, 2 years. So I signed up in January or December of 2005. I got swore in at that point in time. I left for basic in January of 2006. Did all of my trades training and all of my courses up into getting posted to my regiment in that was basically all of 2006. I showed up in October in Edmonton.
And did you know you were headed to Afghanistan while you were training?
Absolutely, yeah. We were, as we're doing our training, all the this is during 2006. Op Medusa is happening in the summer of 2006, and that was when I was doing my trades course. So as I was being trained to be a combat engineer, the guys that were teaching us had friends overseas in combat at the time. So they were telling us the whole time, this is where you're going. Understand that people are dying. Friends of ours are dying right now. And that's where you're headed. So if you're not into that, leave, because this is what's happening. And we were all like, fuck yeah.
At the time, could you say, can you just put me on a reserve somewhere to work, or no? You're just like, no, these are our people. We need to be.
Yeah, if you said I don't want to be here, it would be out. Like you're done. You're out of the army.
Oh,
There's no
okay. It's
like,
not like, I just want to hang out here.
yeah, no. It's
Okay.
at that point in time, if you weren't in a combat arms trade, if you were in a combat arms trade and you didn't want to go overseas, that was the end of your career,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
basically. And it's unfortunate, but that was at the time. That's what it was. And so yeah, we did all of my training in '06 during that huge chunk of combat through the summer. And the Battle of the White School and all these things that are happening was while I was training. So we were getting reports, and this is 2 more guys got injured, and straight in A10, and it was a deal. And I got to my unit in October of '06. We started our workup training for Afghanistan in January of '07. We did all of our workup through '07, and we left 2008. So I had been like training for about 2 years, and then I hit Afghanistan in '08.
And how old were you at this time?
I would have just turned 25. I got in at 20. I was an old man when I got in, actually. So I was 23 when I first got in. There's a whole other story as to why it was 23 when I got in, but that's besides the point.
But tell me this: so you're getting deployed to Afghanistan. What is your mom thinking? Your family, yourself? What are you thinking? I mean, obviously there's a bit of excitement, but at the same time, was there fear because you're hearing about all these stories of people dying?
I back. I don't think I was that fearful of it. I was excited. I was feeling really confident because our training was extensive. And a lot of us, we were all in really good shape. We were all ready to go. And all of us, I think, were bolstered by the fact that we were looking around and everyone was like, "Yeah, like we're gonna get it." Like, all right, boys. To the point that when we were actually overseas, and I think it was a while before I actually even got shot at, and I was getting annoyed that I hadn't got shot on yet. It's like, what the hell? Like we've been getting these stories from '06 to '07 of these running gun battles and so on and so forth. And I think the excitement was, I really wanted to see what I was capable of. That was the big one, was like, when the chips are down, when shit hits the fan, am I going to actually do the job? Or am I going to freak out? Like, because you never really know until a bullet snaps past your head and then you go, it's one or the other, right? And yeah, the same thing. You just.
So as a combat engineer, while you're blowing things up and setting mines and plans and strategies for infrastructure, are the men around you the ones that would carry the weapons and protect you during that time period? Or do you also have a...
Oh yeah, no, we're so the combat engineers are there is points where we do that, and you'd have infantry with you there as protection, but we do all carry weapons. We get attached to the infantry to do those jobs from the front. It's not like we sit back at the end, wait till the area is clear, and then we wander up and like, okay, so we're going to build a bridge here. And no, it's not like that. It's, if you need a bridgehead, that means the infantry have hit the water and there's enemy on the other side. So the infantry are going to hold that water line while we come up and start building while the enemy is shooting at us. And they're shooting it back. And so it's supposed to be that style. Like if you think of, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Bridge Too Far. They have it's a really great movie if you ever get a chance. It's made in the 60s. It's about Operation Market Garden, World War II. And it has a really great scene in it of a bunch of engineers that come up to start building a bridge that a previous bridge had been blown up by the Germans. And so they get there and they start building, and the infantry everyone's just sitting there waiting. Like, we got to get across, like, let's go. And so they just start building. That's the bridging portion of it. But we're also the guys that look for mines and IEDs. So when we're on a patrol, the engineer's in front. He's the first guy in the head of the patrol, and he's sweeping the ground And then I'd have usually an infantry either right behind me or like 3 or 4 feet back watching my arcs because I'm looking at the ground, that kind of stuff. So it's not that we, and I carried a machine gun too. So it wasn't like, if we were to take fire while moving, the metal detector would go away and the machine gun would come out.
So that moment where you were getting fired at, was it like you imagined it was going to be? Because obviously there's reality and then there's perception of what we think it's going to be.
It was definitely more intense than I thought it was going to be. Like I figured I'd have a little bit more, I don't know, wherewithal of what was going on around the situation. But yeah, I mean, when that first round cracked past my head, it just, my body started working. I wasn't really even thinking about what I needed to do. That bullet went past my head. I immediately took cover and I started returning fire. Before my brain was like, "Oh shit!" Like I'm saying, "Oh shit!" They're shooting at me, and I'm already engaging. That kind of thing in my head.
Right.
So the body just takes over because you train over and over and over and over, and it's like somebody yells contact, or you hear that snap that goes past your ear.
Mm-hmm.
You just work.
Would I be able to kill someone? You know, those thoughts come through your head. But I guess if you're put in that position, you don't have a choice. Like,
and it's not so much a thought process of I'm going to kill that guy. I'm going to kill that guy, right? It's the thought. It's more of they're like that's where the rounds are coming from. So that's where I'm going to train.
Right, exactly.
My machine gun, right? So that I'm going to hit that, and if the idea is to neutralize the situation.
Stop the rounds from coming.
Exactly, right? As soon as they stop, okay, cool, we're good to go. It's after the fact that you start thinking about that stuff and you start going, was that me? Were the my round? But I mean, the first firefight I got into, we were actually a full company of infantry, full platoon, of infantry that we were spread out with my engineer section. So we had walked in the morning when it was dark, and we had got lined up when we waited for the sun to rise, and we were in insurgent held territory. I called them pick a fight patrols because that was the whole point of them, was we were like walking right into Taliban territory going, get some, like we're right here. And so they would wake up and be like, oh no, the Canadians are here, and they would start shooting at us, and we would mop the floor with them, kind of thing.
Canadian soldiers, like, we have all this gear and the Taliban have nothing. It's like, how the hell are they so advanced?
They've been fighting for 50 years.
I guess, yeah, it's in their blood. But I'm just thinking, holy shit, like, you guys literally don't wear anything. You're just firing away. Like,
yeah, and a lot of it is they truly believe, I don't know if all of them believe this, but a lot of the ones we've talked to truly believe in inshallah, like that it is God's will. And if they get killed, they were supposed to get killed there. If they kill somebody else, that's what they were supposed to do. There's no thought process of like, oh, I'm going to go take on the Canadians, but look at them. They're in the tank. They're in these giant freaking vehicles that shoot 25 millimeter rounds, and they get out and there's 100 of them, and they don't care. It's just like, I need to go kill some Canadians, or I need to go kill some invaders, or whatever it is they look at us as. But that's like, it's not this. We don't have the same thought process because I'm there because, my government sent me, obviously. But really, when it really boils down to it, when the gunfire starts, I'm a machine gunner. My whole job is to protect everybody with fire superiority, right? So if I can get fire superiority, I'm protecting those around me. And that's it. That's the only thought process in my head at that point in time, is like, am I making sure that these guys can move, or that they're not taking fire, or whatever, because that's my job. When I'm sweeping the ground, same thing. I'm looking for an IED, and I've said many, 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 many times that I would rather miss something with my metal detector and step on it than miss something with my metal detector and not step on it. Because if it's just me that goes, good, I've done my job. But if it's someone 3, 4, 5 people down the line, then I've failed completely. So,
wow, that's brave, man.
it's the job, though. Like, this is, I think a lot of us would feel this way, though, right? So your best friend, right? If you were walking down the street and you were able to foresee some random crazy guy was going to jump the curb and hit him, not you.
No.
And you had the option, you had the choice in that moment to say, I'm going to push him out of the way. And it's going to be you, right? Well, there you go. It's the same thing. It's like, I think before I was in the Army, I used to think the same way of like, you know, these super brave and amazing acts of valor and all these things. It really just comes down to like, that guy's my brother.
Humans, decency, you know, it's that, humans being humans.
Yeah, we're tribe mentality, right? I want to protect the guy next to me or gal next to me or whoever it is next to me. That's my whole purpose in that moment. That's my whole purpose in life. Outside of that moment, it changes, obviously. But
during that time, were you able to close your eyes and sleep and continue on the mission?
Yeah. It wasn't until after I got home that things started to go pear-shaped. Because the work is always there. That's the thing. But like when you're overseas, the work is there. Every day you wake up, we're going on another patrol, or we're waiting for a QRF call, or we're waiting for that, or these things, whatever. Like,
so there's not like one. It's like it's day off. No, and day off means probably just getting yourself ready. Yeah, laundry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, feed, repack the gear, do counts, do some training. Any downtime you have while you're over there is basically spent doing stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only time I think I ever really had like downtime where we would sit and play on the Xbox that I had brought with me and it was at night. And even then, you're just waiting to get a rocket because it always comes in at night. So you're waiting for the explosion, in which case then you have to stop and then you have to go to your bunker and then you have to sit there for an hour to make sure that they don't shoot more. and then off you go back to the rest of your stuff. And then you got to prep your gear and make sure your rifle's good and you clean all this stuff happens throughout the day that you never really stop.
Chance, if you could rewind time, would you still have wanted to be a soldier? Yeah.
I still wish I could be a soldier. That's the
no,
thing.
You still are. You still are. Just different ways now. You know, having your podcast, talking to individuals, sharing your story. I mean, we need to hear these things, you know, as civilians and just everyday folks to know is like, what happened?
I couldn't agree more. And the one of the reasons I actually got the podcast started was...
for the listeners, what's the podcast called?
So the podcast is called Tools for the Toolbox, and it is I talk to vets and other people as well. I don't really limit it to vets, but I talk to vets because it's easy to understand, other vets to understand, right? And as I was saying earlier, but the concept is that we each have tools, right? You have tools that you deal with in order to help you deal with life. I have tools in order to help me deal with life. And those tools might be similar. Sometimes they're slightly different. Sometimes they're completely different. Sometimes they're exactly the same. But everybody has them. Mm-hmm. And when we share them, usually it's to a friend, right? This is how mine started, was the fact that we were hanging out, drinking beers, shooting the shit, talking, you know, swapping stories, blah, 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 blah. And somebody would always be like, oh yeah, no, I haven't been sleeping well, or, you know, my wife and I are just we're not doing well. Like anything, they'd have a problem, right? And one of us would invariably be like, oh yeah, been there. You know, this is what I did, and it helped. Or this is what I did, and it didn't work at all. But we just offer them out there personally to our friends. And we had this one time where we spent like 4 hours sitting there. We probably had too many beers because it was a really in-depth conversation. And we talked about what it was to be a soldier before a war, during the war, and afterwards. Like what that actually means to us. And we finished the whole conversation and we got up to go pay. And somebody was like, dude, we should have recorded that. That would have made an awesome podcast. And I was like, Indeed it would. Indeed it would. And so, yeah, I got it started because it's like that. We need to share these stories. We need to share these tools so that so that they're out there. And I do the same thing with my boys as I'm, you know, teaching them when they're having a hard time. I give them options. You know, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. All of these things are going to have different consequences. Some of them good, some of them bad. The choice is yours. What are you going to do?
We all have choices, right?
That's it. My biggest thing my big tagline from the podcast is grace, not slack, because you have to give yourself grace, because anytime you start something, you're going to suck at it.
Totally.
Right. And anytime you get somewhat good at something, by the time you realize that you know nothing is when you finally reached a point where you're like, okay, you have some competency, right? And then you go, oh, right. There's all of this other stuff I have to learn too. And I just freaking lost my train of thought there. My brain just blanked out.
Well, how about this is, when we were talking about it and I said, how many years had you been in the military at the time? You started talking to your wife and said, hey, I'm something's going on. Something's not right here. What exactly were you thinking about? And how many months later did it start creeping into you? And obviously for the listeners, we're talking about PTSD and trauma.
Yeah. So I got diagnosed in 2012, but I think I realized that there was a problem probably about 2010, because I was still at my unit and I was not pleased to be there, to say the least. Like I was angry and I was bitter, and I was looking at everyone else going, why the fuck are they getting shit and I'm doing nothing? Like I was getting really
like they're getting shit, meaning
like
accolades,
courses, or guys are going on exercises down the States, or they get to go do fun shit that I had been moved into the intelligence cell within my unit. So I was just getting reports of people getting blown up and friends that are dying, and like it was just it sucked, but I saw it as my job and I wanted to do it. But when I signed up to be a fucking engineer, not an intelligence guy. Mm-hmm. So it was very hard to sit there in that cell by myself every day, doing a sergeant and a lieutenant's job by myself, watching guys get to go on, air assault courses, or go on their jump course, or go on just but because I was the only guy in that room, I was not able to go on any courses. So I started to get really angry. I started to really not want to go to work. Whereas before I was always like excited, like, all right, let's get some. And I started to look around. I started to see like political games and machinations, and, the office worker stuff that I was getting really annoyed with. And then I was supposed to go on another tour, and due to some issues with me and a sergeant major, I got taken off that tour. And that's when I started going like, there's a problem here. Now, originally I thought it was the unit. I thought this place is horrible, right? So I asked for a posting. I went to Ontario. I had a much better place to be, surrounded by awesome people, doing a lot of fun teaching, like being an actual instructor. I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And I was still pissed off every day. And I was still not sleeping. And I was still being angry and bitter and not wanting to be involved in stuff. And I was like, okay, so it's not the place. What's the common denominator here? It's got to be me. And I was talking to my wife, and I was saying, I'm not sleeping. I'm still not sleeping here. And she said, because we were, it's called IR. So it's called imposed restrictions. So she was in Edmonton and I was in Meaford. So I was just talking to her on the phone. I was by myself, and I'm getting like maybe 4 hours of sleep a night, of like broken in between nightmares and just not being able to sleep and stuff. And then I do that all week training, and then on Saturday my body would like crash and I'd sleep basically all day, and I'd wake up Sunday and then I'd have to start all over again. But my wife finally said, she was like, maybe it's just a sleep issue. Like, why don't you go talk to the doctors and say, maybe it's just like, maybe it's sleep apnea, or like maybe it's something sleep wise. And I said, yeah, no, that's actually a good idea. Maybe it is. Mm-hmm. And PTSD had not even entered into my brain. Like that wasn't even an option at that point in time. And then I went to the docs and I was like, hey, I'm having trouble sleeping. And they set me up with an appointment with this dude, and we started talking, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, he was like, I just want to really, applaud your bravery for coming in today. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, it's just a sleep issue. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then, I went and saw psych, and they were like, yeah, you have your post-traumatic stress disorder. and major depressive disorder, and an anxiety disorder as well. And then, so I was like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, you're just going to have to manage, we're going to walk through it, and we're going to go through all these places and go through. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, am I still working? And they're like, yep, you're good. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then, so, we started working with a doctor and started the process of dealing with all that shit from there. And that was, I went through, some successes, and then a huge trough, and some a little bit more success, and then another huge trough. And this is the thing that most people don't understand about trauma, is that when you engage trauma, you're going to go down a lot. It's not like all of a sudden you're like, aha, and straight up. No, because you gotta dig into all the shit that you've been holding up for so many years. And so that's one of the hardest parts about trauma, is like you're going downhill. You're going downhill a long way before you start climbing back up.
Yeah, it's like that rock bottom. But you know what? There is a beauty in being at rock bottom, because you can rebuild yourself. Otherwise, you hold that in. I don't know. Yeah. Like you said, your granddad, 70 years. And how many individuals like that, holding that in?
And think about not only that, but the effect that they had on everyone around them. Yeah. Right. And this was the big thing that I actually had to change doctors, because this one guy I was seeing, just him and I didn't mesh, and I was getting worse, and I just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then one day I walked into the room, and my son was maybe 2.
Okay.
And I just I didn't do anything. I just walked into the room, and he saw me and he flinched. And I was like, okay, that's not okay. I'm the problem again. So how do I sort the problem out? And then I found a new doctor. I talked to a buddy of mine, and he was like, you can just see anybody, right? Like, you don't have to see the guy the Army told you to go see. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I did not know that.
But it's also, you started getting comfortable, and it's trust, right? It's your mind. You need to put in a safe place too. Because if I leave it with this guy and he's messing with me, I mean, that's a dangerous place to be. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, and it's not even his fault. Like, it's not like he was being malicious or trying to mess me up.
Just the vibe, right? Didn't connect.
Yeah, and eventually I found this my doc that I still have now. She's awesome, and she got me into equine therapy. And
equine therapy, what is that?
Working with horses. So you're doing like a therapy session with a horse. But what it does, so the thing is, horses are they're prey animals, which means that they are hunted, a hunted species. So they have this innate ability that they can actually, they're more, I guess, more attuned to the surroundings. So that means if there are, people around them or horses around them that are agitated, then all of them feel that immediately, right? So if one horse spooks, that's why they all run. You got the whole herd that takes off because one spooked. Or same thing with deer or elk or anything like that. It only takes the one to see something, and then they all move. So because they're so attuned and aware, horses are special in this way, is that they actually are gregarious by nature, similar to humans. And for us Afghan vets, they work really well because we were prey animals the whole time we were there. While we were in Afghanistan, the only time we would go on the offensive was when we would go do one of those pick a fight patrols, right? Once we're actually fighting, I'm fighting you, I'm on the offensive. I have the superiority in that manner, because I have all these things like marksmanship and body armor and training and all these things. But the rest of the time, with all the IEDs, I'm a prey animal. Those people are hunting me because I don't know where they are. I don't know where the bombs are. I don't know if they're going to ambush me. Any movement, anywhere we go, even huddling inside our fob, right? You're under threat. You're not offensive at that point. Everything's defensive.
Have you seen some IEDs go off before?
A number of them, yeah. I got, I was on, for the 8 months I was overseas, I was on QRF for 5. Mm-hmm. And so all we did was like an IED would go off we went. If somebody came under contact, off we went. We were like the rescue, like, hey, we're going to come save you guys, right? So anytime anybody got hit or engaged, we went to deal with it. So we started searching for secondaries and dealing with some cleanup and all that good stuff. And then there were days that they just didn't stop, right? I got kicked out of my rack one day at like, I don't know, it's like 1:30 in the morning or something like that. And like, let's go. We got shit to do. Okay. And you're like, okay, you're half asleep and get a gear on, you throw it, get in the truck. You drive off to where you're going to go. You show up, you deal with that for 4, 5, 6 hours while everything gets cleaned up and you're looking for secondaries and searching for other bombs and all this other stuff. And then you think you're done and like, okay, we're going to head back. And no, somebody else came under contact. Off you go to the next one. And then, so it's kind of like being an ambulance or a police officer. Like it's just called.
So sleep was not even an option.
Well, I took the option. I was like, anytime we started moving, I'd get into the back of the lab and I'd be like,
just good, yeah.
Out. But the trick was that they had to wake me up every time we stopped. So I'd like to be like, what's happening? Where are we? Oh, we're here. Okay, what are we doing? But so it wasn't the best situation for me, but you know, I just took it where I get it, because there were days like we went from 1:30 in the morning that day, and we didn't get back until 2 or 3:30 the next day. So you're out for plus 24 hours, constant, just under stress, move, doing stuff, and then okay, now we're back, hang out, go back to bed, and you're like, okay, cool, man. You just go back to sleep. Yeah, that was a wild place.
Did you know going into Afghanistan that there's a thing called PTSD, and you need to be aware of this? Because I always wonder, okay, we're talking about it today, like your granddad and the World War II vets and before them, it's a generational thing. Is there ways to, I don't think you can prevent it because we're all human beings, but is there a way to reduce it or cope with it better? Obviously, I think with technology, us doing this is a great thing. Opening up your podcast is phenomenal, because I was talking to Tim.
Gunny. Yeah.
And I said, we're talking about the legions. Back then, that's what that was. Everyone would meet up there. But the times have changed.
Yeah, and the way we interact has changed. That's a big one too, right? We don't, like, my generation of vets don't need to go to a bar to hang out, right? We don't need the alcohol as a common place for us to chill. Whereas back in the day, you look at the end of the 40s, that's what you did. That's where you met people. That's where you hung out with people, was you would go to the bar or the speakeasy or the pub or the whatever it was, the Legion. And that's what they did. That's why they still have, dart tables and pool rooms, and they do dances on Sunday. And it's because of that generation. That's what they put in place, because that's what they did. We don't do that anymore, right? Like, our generation doesn't go to pool halls. Some do, but it's not as popular as it used to be.
No, or it's not as frequent. It's like if you guys might get together for a big event or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a dart tournament. You might see some people, my age doing it, and okay, cool, it's lots of fun, but it's not really part of the culture anymore. So it depends on what group you're in beforehand, whether that is, culturally appropriate. And that's why I think that the Legion is starting to fade away, is that they haven't moved. They haven't evolved with the people. Like, they just still do the same things that my granddad did, because that's what they've always done. And, cheap beer and, a lot of local band are not what they used to be. Know what I mean? So but I always say on my podcast, man, like, this communication network, this is gold. This is how we heal, instead of having a generational scar, from the end of World War I. There were an entire generation that came back scarred and tried to fix themselves. And you look what happened in there, what happened in the 20s, right? A whole bunch of people come out of the military that have no idea what to do with their shit. And they're just like, let's fuck it, man. Life is crazy. I'm just going to party for like 10 years, right? That's all they know. So they try it.
But it's not just their life. It's like you said, it's the families. If you have children that gets passed on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, when do you break the generational curse?
Yeah, and I don't even look at it as a curse. It's more of a, it's just a lesson. So I did a post on this a while ago, and it's such a funny thing that I heard it in the military over and over and over again, and I thought it was more of like a joke.
Yeah.
And it was, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And I always like, ha 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 ha, yeah, okay, you know, it's all about us getting beat down until we smile about it. But I heard it in a different way just recently. That was, the lessons will be repeated until they are learned. And I was like, oh, right. And so I started applying that to everything that I had done previous. And I was like, no wonder I didn't get courses when I was in that one period, because I was an angry, bitter dude that didn't want to engage or be a part of the team. Well, yeah, why would you send that guy on a course? That makes perfect. And then like looking at this inwards, and then I started looking, you know, you look at culturally where we are right now is a reflection of 30 years ago. We're now dealing with the problems that we all tried to deal with, the problems from 30 years. And we're just in this moment of iteration, and we go, oh, okay, well, that's not a good idea, right? And you know, it's unfortunately seen as a curse rather than looking at it as the lesson that it is, right? You know, your parents drank a lot and beat you. Well, that's a lesson, unfortunately, that some people have to learn, that is a bad thing to do.
And it ends with you,
it ends with you, exactly. And you say, I'm not going to do that to my kids.
Similar to what you said in your podcast, or earlier in the podcast, was choices. We all have choices.
Exactly. And that's where the tools come in, right? Because you never really know. A lot of us are just freaking swinging in the dark, right? Like just
getting by.
Right? I don't know how to do with this. I'm going to try this thing, and I'm going to see if this works. And it's interesting. Our hot water heater just like died. It started leaking out the bottom, and I had to shut it off because it would explode very soon if I didn't actually do anything with it.
What a perfect timing.
Right. And, but I looked at it the other day. We were like, oh, we're going to have to get somebody to come in and install it. And we're going to have to get somebody to do this. And then I stopped, and I was like, it's just electrical, right? Like we're taking the gas out, and we're putting in a hybrid one, the heat vent ones. They're pretty cool. Anyway. But I was like, it's just electrical. Like, I've done lots of electrical. I can do that. Can I actually do that? And I started looking up the video, and I'm like, holy shit, I can do it. It's just like a little bit of plumbing and some electrical. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. So I don't need to spend $1,200 on getting somebody to install it, because I have the experience and I have the knowledge. But had I not had the library of the world in my phone to go, is that actually possible? Like, let's see somebody do it. So I looked up a video on YouTube, bam, how to install this particular water heater. I was like, I can do all of that. Sweet, right? I don't have to take a shot in the dark. I don't have to pay $1,200 to get somebody to come in and do it. I know I have the skill set. I know I have the confidence. I can, okay, cool. Let's get her done. But it's the same thing with trauma. We're all swinging in the dark until finally somebody catches something. And like when I caught equine therapy, I made huge strides. But up until then, I was just, what do I need to do? Somebody tell me. Like, do I go talk to you? Okay, we'll talk about it. Now it's getting worse. Now what do I do? You say keep talking about it. Okay, I don't like that idea. So I talk to this guy. What do I do? And he says, go see somebody else. Okay, you know.
But then your hope, you know, you start losing hope.
Eventually, yeah. And again, that's a choice, right? And if you look at it in that way, it's
because you could have picked up the bottle, or you can give it one more shot, one more person.
I just put a post out yesterday about a hunting trip that I just came back from. And the lesson that I took from it was, you're one fuck it away from success. Always, at all times, right? Try something. It didn't work. Fuck it, try something else. Didn't work. Fuck it, try something else. And eventually, you're going to hit something. And if your hope is in that the process will work, then you will always have hope. If your hope is that this one thing, this is going to be the fix, this will solve everything, then you're going to lose that hope, because it won't solve everything. It'll solve a piece or maybe a part of it. but how much, like what part of it and what do you need? And so um, I'm a huge proponent of just being a student. Just walk around of just like, what can I learn? Because man, I'm doing a bunch of renos on the house, and I just, with a previous house we had bought or just sold, that I had completely renoed the basement on. When I started all this stuff, I kind of knew how to do it, right? Like I know how to swing a hammer, and I know how to, put some boards together. So yeah, framing is okay. But when I got, there's a great story, on my threes course, which is the trades qualification course. So like you do your basic, and then you do an element trade course. So like an army qualification, you learn machine guns and reconnaissance, that kind of stuff. And then you do your trade course. So as an engineer, we learn engineer stuff, and you have to be tested on everything to make sure that you're competent, right? So they came out and they gave us a lesson on a hammer. This is a claw hammer. Safety features are this. It has, and like literally, it was a 40-minute class on a fucking on hand tools. So I think they spent maybe 10 minutes on the hammer. Mm-hmm. But there was a guy in my class taking notes, and I was like, seriously? And we got outside, and they're like, we're going to test you on this. Here's a 6-inch nail. Drive it into this wood. And the guy eventually got the nickname Lightning because he couldn't hit the same place twice. But we had asked him about it, and he's like, I've never used a hammer before. Not once. And, like he grew up in urban Toronto, like downtown Toronto. Like, no need. Why would he ever come? And we thought he was crazy, all the guys that have grew up using hammers and tools and stuff like that. But if you're never exposed to it,
you don't know.
You don't know. And so, yeah, same thing with the podcast and doing advocacy and doing trauma work and helping other people and all these things, is that all I can do is show someone the door.
Yeah. Do you feel like with this new generation, though, or of your generation of vets, have you thought to bring on the World War II vets that are remaining, or are they just not going to open up?
I try. Absolutely. Yeah. I think I've talked to all kinds of vets now, Vietnam vets and, Afghan vets, Iraq vets. Talked to some, not on the podcast, but I've talked to some, like lots of World War II vets and Korea vets. And the one thing that actually binds us all is war. Mm-hmm. So, and you'll see it on Remembrance Day. You'll see the new generation sitting down with the old boys, listening to stories, drinking, right? Because that was their medium. That's where you get them to actually open up, was when they have a bottle in their hand.
It's so true. Yeah.
And unfortunately, you see less and less of the older generation on the new medium, which is, podcasts and video interviews and all kinds of stuff. Because it's harder to kind of bring them up to speed in terms of how to get onto this and make sure it's all running, and then being comfortable talking to a screen, right? And then,
totally.
So there's, excuse me. So it's not that it's impossible, but it's an uphill battle because
the times are different. Yeah,
the times are different, and that's the thing. Like as we were saying earlier, right? The Legion was imperative back then because the medium was vulnerability through alcohol. And now it's vulnerability now through anonymity kind of deal, right? Because you're not in the room with me. And so it's a little bit easier because, if I really wanted to, and we had this conversation, it was too much for me. And I was like, man, I need you to delete that. I don't want it on there. Then you could do that. And that conversation would be gone.
Totally. Yeah. Right.
So you have that, a way to be vulnerable with a little safeguard in the background. Like I can just get rid of this if it.
You know what? We empty ourselves out, don't we? We're just like this. I have nothing to hide. This is me.
Exactly. And then you're present. You're in the moment. You're just enjoying this conversation. And you're able to just be.
You're free.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about the past because it's done. The lesson's either learned or it's going to be repeated. Mm-hmm. And then, like, if you don't, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Interesting. Chance, I've spoken with a few vets. Everyone's looking forward. Everyone's looking at chasing light, inspiring others, focused on the good, not the evil. Because oftentimes darkness creates vengeance and bitterness in life, and anger. Is it because you guys have seen this darkness, or you have seen this darkness, that all you want to do moving forward is to help individuals, help others, and of course, by doing so, you're helping yourself heal? So,
I think that's 100% right. Absolutely. My my whole philosophy is to be as open as possible. I'm sure you've been in a classroom, and I'm sure you've been in where the teacher has asked you, "Are there any questions?" And the room has gone silent, right? Nobody asked any question. The teacher says, "There are no stupid questions. Somebody ask a question," right?
Yeah.
Because he knows that if one person's asked the question, 7 other people in that room are like asking the same question in their head. Like, one person doesn't quite understand it. There's at least 3 or 4 more that aren't quite there. And then there's probably 5 or 6 more that aren't even listening. Right.
Right.
So it might be beneficial to go over it again. And I mean, when I was teaching, I did the same thing. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Are there any stupid questions? And I would flat out ask people that, because if you think it's stupid, you're not going to ask it. But if you ask me this question, you'll give me an answer. And I'll be able to, or you'll get a question and I'll be able to answer it for you, regardless of how stupid I think it is or whatever. The other people in the class might make fun of you for it, whatever. But now you know, right? You actually got an answer to your question. And in the same way in society, the best way to build the society itself. Informal. I've always said, a key to a good democracy is an informed populace. Then we all can see the options, right? If there are 10 options and I can only see 2, I'm going to pick between these 2. Who knows if the other 8 were any good, or better, or possible, or blah blah blah. Right? So if I allay all of your issues and your fears and your doubts and your self-criticisms and your stuff by being that open, then you have nothing to fear.
What do you think?
And we can move forward.
What do you think people can do, or the legions can do, to help get with the times? I know it's tough. Has the legion itself metaphorically switched onto podcast now in these mediums for the vets of today and tomorrow?
Well, I mean, if you ask me to solve all the issues for the,
and it's like, where do you start? But in terms of the camaraderie of men, women.
So the thing with the Legion is all they need to do is focus on the veteran, right? That's it. If you focus on the veteran as the mandate is, then you can grow from there. But right now they're so focused on the tradition of the Legion, and it blows me away that they still have these little small little things, the little bars in the little towns and so on and so forth, that are usually off in a little corner, or they're not really out on display in the town, and they might have an old relic there, but they're funded through the Poppy Fund and all these other things. Look around. Look at what people are doing to fundraise. Look at what people are doing in order to get engagement. Look at what's happening and emulate it. It doesn't take a whole lot, right? You don't need to have a whole podcast team. You don't need to set up these things that are all super professional. You just need people that actually care about the veteran. And once you have that, then your focus shifts, because you're not concerned about having the bar. You're not concerned about having dart leagues and the things that have normally kept those doors open, because you're focused on what it is the veteran actually requires. And my buddy and I sat down. We actually had a really great conversation about this. And his idea was that they, instead of having 5 or 6 different legions in a big city, you have one, and you put it on the main bar strip, and you make it a successful pub style thing, right? Where everybody can come in. It's called the Legion. It's got all the memorabilia. It looks great. It's this, it's the place to go for a drink when you want to go hang out. And then you have a separate upstairs that has a smaller bar and it's veterans only. And then up there, you have offices that have all of your outreach programs and all of your funding programs and all of your stuff. So it's not like, going off to the Legion to go get help, right? You're going down to the Legion to go talk with the boys. And then, I'm going to go upstairs for a few minutes and go talk to that guy. And he's going to help me out with my truck payments because I'm in a shitty spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, that's the best way to do it because you have a successful business because, that helps fund things. And then you're not looking at a requirement of donations. And I mean, there's this whole thing with the poppy right now. I got a whole bunch of buddies that are in the veteran space that are, making flags and t-shirts and all these other things. They want to design stuff and then sell it and then use that money to help other people. But you're not allowed to use anything with a poppy.
Oh, so you know that.
Yeah. So the Legion, the Royal Canadian Legion Command actually owns the right to the Flanders poppy. So you cannot sell anything with the Flanders poppy as imagery at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Sounds a little weird to me.
Dude, look it up. I don't know how many dudes I got that have cease and desist letters from the Legion for using the image, just the image of the poppy, right? And at the time, like I get it because it, you don't want to dilute the message, but you can't work with people. You can't say, hey, this guy is awesome. He's a vet. He gets the check mark. He can use it. Right. Because then you can have licensed people and so much money from this thing goes to the Legion. Right. Like it's just, again, it's not a focus on what the vet needs. It's a focus on what's good for the Legion, right?
Because it's almost like, in business, especially in the oil and gas companies here in Alberta, there's the baby boomers and they're fading out, but there's so much new technology. It's like, how do you bring this technology in while they're still there and they don't want to use it because we've always done it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And similar to the Legion, right? There's certain people that are in charge, and I mean, there's this new generation that's like, holy smokes, we could totally do this. I mean,
it's a little, I mean, maybe might be fun, but it's not.
Do you still get a generation that goes there for drinks? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like that's the thing is like in small towns, this is where those small legions are great because if you go down to like Olds, there's a great Legion right there. And the staff there all are awesome and they care about the veterans and they want to help out. And like I've been in there a couple of times and they're a great crew. And I've been in other small town legions like Onaway or Okotoks or friggin' anyway, doesn't matter. I've been in those small town legions and that's that old generation. They still go there for the dart leagues and they go there for the meat draws and they go there for like the Sunday night dances with the live bands and that are, playing that generation style of music and that it's that type of environment. But like you said, they're fading out. So all those little legions are starting to die because the people just aren't there anymore. And the crowd doesn't like, I get it. I don't want to go to Legion. Like, that's not where I would want to go for a drink. I kind of go there every once in a while just to say, I went down to the Legion to go for a drink, but it's not
sounds like a night out kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas if you made it like a really cool pub with, actual stories and actual memorabilia up on the walls and where people could sit and have a drink and like look at, a Victoria Cross medal from somebody that, Smokey Smith or somebody like that, you could read the story and go like, holy shit.
I love history. So that would be nuts to see. Yeah.
Yeah. And conversation starters too, right? Like, look at that dude. He was like 22 and he, was all of a sudden a flying ace and like that kind of stuff where it'd be like, that's cool.
It's, I think Olds has the bunkers there that people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually in school in Olds for about a year, and so I was at that Legion a number of times. I would just go in and say hi because I was like the one Afghan vet in the whole neighborhood. So, yeah.
I wonder if I should go in there and be like, with my mic, who's ready to podcast in here?
Yeah. I'm setting up. Let's do this.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, get him out of here.
Yeah. Oh, and they might be like, oh, that's a good idea, and they might call some people in. I brought all my gear to I was just in Operation Pegasus jump out where was it? Campbell River, out on the island. Absolutely wicked. And I mean, I had all kinds of issues. All kinds of issues. I did multiple interviews where my board didn't record anything.
Oh, no.
I was just lucky enough that I had my camera recording. So I had to again, I got home and I was trying to fix the audio, and I had to learn all kinds of new audio editing techniques and trying to clean this up and add these then just to get it so that it was viable. Or, I could have made the choice and be like, yeah, this is garbage, I'm not touching it, and throw it out, and that conversation would be gone. Versus pushing myself to just work a little harder, try to figure this out, do another iteration. Okay, that didn't work either. Okay, that didn't work either. Oh, that sounded pretty clean. And then the funny thing is I have pretty big hearing loss, so I'm a deaf guy doing audio engineering. It's not the smartest thing, but again, it forces me to just
learn, push yourself.
Exactly.
You're gonna fail. Just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna fail. That's the best. It's gonna happen. You don't have just accept that you're gonna fail, and you're good.
All right. Well, thanks so much for today, Chance. I appreciate it, man.
No worries, man. Thanks for the conversation. It's been great.